team.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Orange Peelers. I'm surprised you've agreed to be in the same room as me after all the beef we've had online.
No, not at all.
But yeah, welcome to Orange Peelers. You're the third ever guest, I think, off the top of my head, and the first guest on this set as well. So welcome. You've flown in from the sunny coast as well, just to be here.
Yeah, so got up at 3 a.m. this morning, drove about an hour to Brisbane, and then, flew in. I got all the times wrong. I told you the wrong time to pick me up because I didn't convert from Queensland, New South Wales time. But anyway, we're here now and, ready to rip and tear.
And as I said, you've flown in just for the podcast, I believe. Is that right?
Not quite. So by the time this is aired, we'll well and truly be beyond the Sports Shed TV charity match. So that's happening this time, tomorrow.
Yeah.
But also we're going to the Indig All-Stars versus Māori All-Stars tonight. And there's a bunch of other people I'm going to catch up with and jump on a few podcasts as well. Of course, we've got our debate coming up.
Yes.
Which by this time, people will know that I've well and truly won.
I love it. I love the confidence.
But, so I've kind of turned this trip into a bit of a media tour plus footy plus all things.
And I've got a hold of you first, which I'm honoured.
You have, yes.
I was like, I remember a couple of years ago, I reckon it legit might have been 23, but definitely last year, if not, you messaged me and you had a lot of less followers back then, but you messaged me asking to be on Orange Peelers and you wanted to do a Zoom.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And I was I don't like doing Zooms. I'd rather in person. And I said to you, next time you're in Sydney, we'll do one. And here we are.
And there you go. He's kept his word. So there you go.
I feel like you're almost a CBA because you just shot up the ranks in terms of, you got nearly 20,000 followers now across platforms, I think. Everyone knows you, as the jersey guy. I talk to my mates all the time about what did Retro think about this jersey? And so it's kind of funny to look back at that moment of you asking to come on Orange Peelers. And I was like, next time you're in Sydney, it'll happen.
Yeah. Well, there you go. There you go. So you brushed me back then, so you're lucky I said yes to you this time.
Yeah, I know. Literally. No, it's been a long time coming. Tell me, how did Retro Rugby League start? Actually, let's go. We'll start even before that. How did you get into rugby league?
Yeah, so no one really in my family, by that I mean, brothers, I don't have brothers, sisters and mum and dad and whatever really watch football. Yeah. But my grandparents did. And so somewhere in the mix between them and then just growing up as a kid with other kids who watch sport, I somehow fell into rugby league. The first memories I have of watching football is State of Origin.
Yeah, okay.
And the first grand final I ever remember watching is the 99 grand final, St. George and Melbourne.
Yeah.
And that's the first one. I mean, I might have watched bits and pieces of others, but that's the first one I can remember watching start to finish.
Yeah.
And I went for Melbourne at the time, actually, because I'm born in Box Hill, which is kind of Hawthorn Hawks territory.
Yeah.
But we didn't live there for very long. So when Melbourne first started, I kind of was on that bandwagon. But then a lot of players left, like Brett Camorley and Marcus Bai, Robbie Ross, Glenn Lazarus, and so I kind of fell off liking Melbourne. And a lot of the guys who were in the New South Wales squads were either Roosters players or Sharks players, and I kind of flitted between the two. Dave Peachy is still one of my all-time faves. But the Roosters made the grand final that year in 2000. Yeah. And even though they lost, I kind of stuck with them ever since. And then 2002 won the premiership. And that's had me sold. I've got the tattoo on the back of my calf. So
you were just jumping bandwagon to bandwagon. You're like, all right, Storm are in the grand final, go Storm. Roosters are in the grand final, go Roosters.
To be fair, I did go for Melbourne before they were in the grand final. Yeah, that's and before the Roosters were successful.
I can understand, if you're in Melbourne and then Melbourne comes into the comp, it's sort of hard to not go for them, isn't it?
Yeah, and I wasn't even in Melbourne, but I just had this kind of affinity because I was born there. Yeah, that I should go for that team. Yeah, but I quickly, and I think also for me, because State of Origin was the big thing, and everyone in Queensland went for the Broncos. We were living in Queensland at the time. And so I was like, well, I hate Queensland. I hate the Broncos. What's the opposite of Broncos? Brisbane is Sydney Roosters, and they had all New South Wales players, Freddie, Luke Ricketson, Minicello, Craig Fitzgibbon, Craig Wing. And so I thought, I'm on that bandwagon.
So obviously you said Origin was one of your earliest memories. So is that sort of why you went Roosters, is because you were such a big New South Wales fan and they had the Roosters players?
Yeah, I think so.
Hatred for
and it's just that kind of the tribalism from Origin spills out into clubland. And so I remember in grade 3 drawing pictures of the Roosters must have been playing the Broncos this Friday night or whatever. And I was drawing pictures of like the Roosters versus Broncos and trying to draw the symbols and make the scores and all that kind of stuff. So I was probably more enamored with what I would call like the mythology of the game, the storytelling, the folklore, the build up, than the actual game itself. When I watch games, when I play at club level, when we play on the weekend, there'll be a lot of things happen that I don't have a clue what's going on.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I even had to, before the game on the weekend, watch some old games to remember, okay, if I'm playing front row, I know where to stand. If I'm playing lock, where do you stand off a kickoff?
Yeah.
If I'm playing second row, where do you stand off a kickoff? Like, so some of those little bits escape me.
Yeah.
But the storytelling and the mystique and the mystery and all the folklore, that's what really gets me into rugby league. That's probably why I prefer NRL 360 sometimes over actually watching the game.
Because you get all the stories, right?
Exactly,
I feel like that's a big way that rugby league and sport generally, though, is moving through media is you almost consume more about what's around the game or like during the week. Like for me personally, like I try and watch every game of rugby league, like every game of NRL on the weekend. But then through my week, I'm listening to every single podcast, right? And I feel like that's such a big thing with the way, social media and that is at the moment is so many fans do just consume the stuff around the game, the stories and what's happening, heading into the game. Do you feel that's a thing?
Oh, 100%. I was listening to the How's That podcast, Mike Whitney and some of the other guys, and they had Paul Kent on as a guest the other day, and he was talking about the shift in sports writing when he was a journalist, starting journalist, to going from your more factual, just report what happened. It was a 12-6 game. Parramatta beat the Eagles. They played at Brookvale Oval. So-and-so scored and it was a close match before. And it was pretty formulaic. Yeah. But from America came this style of storytelling that was a lot more flowery, but it pulled on threads of storylines. That's where we get this modern idea of, in a couple of weeks' time when Josh Adokar will play against the Bulldogs.
Yeah.
That's now a storyline because we've brought that style of thinking and that style of storytelling into journalism and media and whatever, because we realize that it captures people's hearts and attention. And it's more than just eyeballs. It really kind of sinks deep into their essence and their being is why it grabs them.
Yeah.
So that's probably started, I guess, in the, I don't know, maybe 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
And is carried through today. And I think it's only blossomed because we have so many more voices in the space now because of podcasts and all the other bits and pieces, short form media and YouTube channels. Everyone gets to have their say and pick up on little things that other people miss.
Yeah, 100%.
Fox League or whatever only have so much time. So having us little guys in the game also elevates the status of the game.
There's just so much to consume, right? So the fan can pick and choose. Like if it was the early 2000s and I want to consume some rugby league content, I'm not picking what to watch. It's what's on TV. But nowadays it's like if I want this certain, like your guru is your bloke in a vase or, and Fox League still. Yeah. You can pick which one you're watching, right?
And it's so accessible. Like I remember back in the day, if you didn't have Ozstar, you probably weren't rich. And so you watched like 2 games of football a week. Yeah. And if they weren't your team, too bad.
Yeah.
And if it's Friday night, you don't like the Broncos, too bad. But now, like for I don't know what the cost of KO is, shout out to KO, $15 a month or whatever the pricing is, it's cheaper than McDonald's for a month. So everyone can just, consume all this rugby league content and focus in on the particular areas they like. If you want to watch it because you've got like a super coach bench, you watch it in this angle. If you're watching it because you care about the jerseys or you care about just your team in general, you can listen to it with, I'm sure there's some Bulldogs only commentary or whatever out there.
And I feel like touching on that quickly, I feel that's a big direction it's going to go with almost alternate commentary. You see all the people streaming games, creators, and then even KO and stuff now have started to incorporate like Hello Sport, for example, into doing alt commentary of, boxing and stuff. And I feel like that'll seep into rugby league. And I feel like in 10 years' time, it literally might be you sit down and you choose who's commentating the game for you to listen to.
Well, that may come closer than 10 years because, of course, recently Foxtel, News Corp sold off Foxtel to DAZN. Yeah. But with the new licensing TV rights deal that will come for the start of 2028, I believe, there's whispers whether the likes of Netflix, Amazon, whatever would enter the market. Yeah. Now, even if it doesn't happen in that deal, I reckon it would happen in the next one, which I think is 2032. Yeah. And from one sense, that may not be a great thing for the consumer because they'll have to have, Channel 9 for watching State of Origin and Grand Finals. They'll have to have KO or Foxtel for other games, and then your special ones for, whatever Christmas special, spread across the networks. Yeah. But what it does do is means that instead of there just being one Matty John show and one Phil Gould show, there's now 5 shows. And every 5 shows has got to have 5 producers and 5 this and 5, and everything just multiplies out and out and out. So the voices amplify in the room, and the opportunities for the alternate stuff grows immensely with the production that people are used to.
Yeah.
So 100%. We really could be around the corner from that.
Yeah. And speaking of almost like new age media, so to put it, obviously the rise of social media and stuff, that's where you find yourself reviewing jerseys and obviously selling jerseys is, I assume, where it started. How did it start? Retro Rugby Leeg.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So it started because there's
when as well, sorry.
Yeah. So it's about October-ish, September, October 2022. There's a guy called Jersey Lord, and he's still doing the thing on Instagram. And I actually heard about him, I think, through Hello Sport.
Yeah, okay.
One of the boys had bought something off him.
Yeah.
Anyway, I checked out his page, and he was buying and selling stuff. And I had this cupboard full of jerseys. And I thought, I kind of need a little bit of money. Maybe I'll sell these jerseys to this guy.
Yeah. Why did you have the jerseys? Just you just
my own personal collection. So mostly Roosters stuff. I'm a Roosters fan, and then also some Australian and New South Wales jerseys and bits and pieces. Anyway, I was about to sell them all to him, and then I looked at his page and I thought, maybe I could do something like this. I'm not saying I could do it better, but I thought I could give it a go.
You can replicate it.
Yeah. So basically, and I hit him up and said, look, I'm thinking about doing something like this. How do I do it? And he just answered all my questions. So I just gave it a go, put all the jerseys, I went and got nice photos of them. And my plan was to release a jersey and then make a little video about the history of that jersey or a particular game or something like that that featured in. Put them all out there, and it was an absolute flop.
Yeah.
No one bought anything. Everything just sat up there for nothing was getting any views. I think I had one video it was about Fatty Vorton that got 1,500 views.
Yeah.
And that was big, and everything else was kind of nothing. And then I think it was about February or January the next year that I thought, I'm just about to give up on this thing. I'm just going to chuck everything on Marketplace and sell it like that. And then one by one, things started to sell. And then I learnt that what I'd done is I'd actually just operated badly in the cycle, because I was operating off season. No one cares about rugby league. Everyone's finished with that. They're looking at cricket or whatever.
Yeah.
But by the time January comes around, everyone's getting excited about rugby league again, and they start buying things. And then from there, things just kind of sold bit by bit by bit.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of started buying more stuff and selling more stuff and making some videos about it. And then I think one day it's when the Warriors released their Heritage jersey just last year.
Yeah.
And I saw it, and I saw the way they marketed it. And I just thought they did a really good job, because they marketed to the average fan where they were at, in the corner store, the dairy, they'd call it. And when I saw that, I just made this little 15-second video saying this is really cool. And for me, that kind of blew up, thinking 20,000 views when I had 400 followers or something like that. And I thought, okay, so this is something that people like. Then the next day, either the next day or the same day, I made one about the Raiders, and they had they'd gone to that new logo, which is awful. Yeah. And then they doubled down and made that alternate jersey where the logo was emblazoned across the front. And I said, in the Warriors video, that one was good. In the Raiders video, this one sucks.
Yeah.
And people liked that video too, including Josh Papali actually commented saying, I agree. So,
wow.
So I don't know if he got in trouble for that. But from there, I thought, okay, there is something going on in this space where people want to hear this.
Yeah.
Particularly then when it started to ramp up with Anzac designs and Indigenous designs that have stories behind it. Mm-hmm. And often the clubs will write lengthy articles and no one reads them. So I read them, and I turned those articles into videos, and people loved it.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, so there's something here. So I just kept kind of pushing and going from there, and here we are.
Yeah. And so you mentioned the articles, because obviously your content at the moment, if we're just looking purely content, is you're still selling jerseys.
Yep.
So you have them as a post, and then you're just reviewing jerseys as they are released, and not just jerseys. You do you go into the training gear and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I think you're also covering news here and there.
Yep.
Where was that transition? Was it purely just let's see if this works, if people want to watch this, and then they did, and you just kept doing it?
I think so. What happened was at the start of 2024, hold on, what year are we in now?
25 now.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, viewers.
It's a bit like that, isn't it?
I think it was the start of 2024. I was because I've been doing the just jersey selling bit and piece for a year. And I was like, right, I'm going to ramp this up. My goal is to make a video every day from January through to Feb, because that's the lead up. So I want to like just generate as much excitement. And then once the season kicks off, then I'll just go back to selling jerseys.
Yeah.
And so I had this goal, and I'd done some things around like AI was brand new. So I did like an AI ladder ranking and all this kind of stuff. And from there, once that kind of cottoned on, I just kept making the next video and the next video and the next video. So some of it was because of, a new jersey got released or a new team had done something impressive. Some of it was like tips and tricks around buying and selling stuff. People would often buy stuff and say it's the wrong size. So how do we work way around that? How do I know what's valuable and what's not valuable? Why is Bulldog stuff worth heaps now, and why was it worth nothing 2 years ago? Because teams kind of function a little bit like stocks depending on their performance. So it was all stuff like that I started to make content around. Oh, and the cleaning. Actually,
the cleaning chronicles.
That was the thing that was before the Warriors stuff. That was the first thing that kind of took off, which is interesting. Sorry to digress.
No, go for it. Digress.
I remember standing there. I had this Rabbitohs jersey. It was a 1995 World Sevens Rabbitohs jersey. As covered in signatures, but not even from the time period. Like 2013, 2014, 2018 signatures. And I was going to get them off. And I remember sitting there in the laundry with the camera or my phone on the shelf ready to record, thinking, no one will want to watch this. And I was about to bail, and I thought, I'll just make one. And then if no one likes it, then I won't bother doing it again. Well, by the time I'd finished, everyone was like, when's part 2 coming out? And all these like middle-aged women were messaging me saying like, you should use this product, or what did you use here, or whatever. And so that kind of took off a little bit, and people wanted to see more and more, and they're asking questions. Can you do it on cotton? What if it's a different color pen? Have you tried using this? And we did some ones where I was using, different soaps or vodka or whatever to get these stains out. So it's just all those little threads tied to jerseys, collectors, the kind of fashion of jerseys, which has really taken merch and stuff to a whole nother level. It's that whole trend that I've kind of accidentally jumped on. And also this other fashion trend called blokecore. Have you heard about blokecore?
No.
Yeah. So that's a trend behind all the girls are now wearing like Manchester United jerseys out in the street. It's that trend, and I think we found ourselves mixed up in it as rugby league people, but it's working really well for us. Because AFL people don't do it. It's just a leaguey thing.
I actually wanted to touch on, I was going to touch on it later, but I'll do it now because you've sort of brought it up. I feel, and like I don't even feel like it's a fact, that obviously other sports jerseys are so like fashionable and stylish. Like if I go down the street, you're seeing people in EPL jerseys, NBA jerseys, NFL jerseys, but you don't really see anyone rocking NRL jerseys, right? Just casually. Like if you go to a game, what do you think that is? Why is that?
Well, I would contest that, and I'd say I actually had this discussion a little bit with the Messenger. Because he said the same thing, but in Queensland it's not like that. It's very common to see people in rugby league jerseys. I mean, I almost exclusively wear rugby league jerseys. Even when I'm teaching in schools and stuff, I have rugby league jerseys
and
on.
That's like normal up there?
Very.
Okay, there you go. So what do you think it is outside of Queensland then? Because like in Sydney, like you'll see it every now and then, but it's almost like, oh, he's in an NRL jersey. Like it stands out like a sore thumb where, as I said, EPL, NBA, all that, it's, more fashionable, and you always see people in those jerseys, but not really NRL jerseys.
Well, I mean, I think you got to remember, and this will cross over a little bit into our debate in Tuesday. Like those markets, so we're talking NBA, NBA and EPL are probably the two bigger ones in Australia. NFL isn't as big. I don't think the big oversized trend has really caught on here. And certainly hockey isn't as big a thing.
Definitely not hockey.
But those two, the NBA and NFL and EPL, have cottoned onto like two particular trends, or have created those trends because they're so big. So the NBA stuff has really infiltrated hip hop culture. And so therefore is pushed in that. So if you like hip hop, you inadvertently like NBA stuff. You're wearing Lakers jerseys or LA Raiders now they're called. Used to be Oakland Raiders. That's right. So that was trendy because of that. EPL, you've kind of got like the British lad culture, and also this kind of, I suppose, semi-fashion-y trend of that it's a blokey thing to wear. So I think it's those things that have transport. It's not so much the sport; it's the sports are carried by the vehicles, which are the culture elements. And I think that's where it's landed with us. But like I was saying, in rugby league, I think it's become more and more a thing. I went on the podcast with the boys, the short boys, who are also on the sunny coast. Yep. They said it's becoming a trend, certainly in Queensland anyway, people to wear rugby league jerseys to music festivals. They said they saw a lot of Warriors heritage jerseys out and about, particularly the retro ones, anything with collars, it's baggy. Yeah. And when you go to Magic Round, it's near impossible to see a modern jersey. They're almost all retros.
It's a jersey fest, Magic Round.
Yeah. I've planned out what I'm wearing each and every day.
Yeah, literally.
People have messaged me saying, what should I wear this day? What should I wear that? Should I wear just my own team? Should I mix it up? So it really is a whole thing. And like rugby league has never been bigger than it is now.
Yeah.
Jersey sales are never bigger than they've been now. The extent that the merch ranges are going is huge. And I'd be really interested to hear what players think about it.
Yeah.
You get the impression that back in the old days, players didn't really care.
Yeah.
It's just a shirt I wear to work.
Yeah.
But I remember when you put that video out, when they showed the Bulldogs guys the training gear, and they're all going, "Oh, this is hectic, this is mad." Like it seems like the players really buy in to that 100%. Now.
I remember like speaking to Critter last year when I was at the finals launch, and he was like doing his photo shoot, and we are just like standing there, and on his phone the Heritage jersey popped up.
Yeah,
I think they were like trying to sell it, like it was like on the Bulldog story, and he like showed it to me. He goes, "Oh, like we're wearing this weekend," and does cool boss to get, but. He also then just started telling me about how much he loves that jersey. And it was so interesting to hear, not just like an NRL, but this is Stephen Crichton, like a superstar, care about that jersey. And obviously the 2004 Heritage jersey is such a big thing for the fans.
Yeah.
Because obviously like it was probably the best-selling jersey of the year. You probably know the numbers. And it was just like such a big deal for the fans. But then to see a player see it as a big deal as well.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
Yeah, and it's interesting that now it seems like players actually have a bit of a say in what gets picked.
Yeah.
So the story goes, and whether it's true or not, or just bro science, but remember for the last couple of years, Parramatta have had a white away jersey.
Yes.
Apparently that was a player's decision.
Really?
That they really liked that. Now
I feel like the fans hate that.
Oh, they do.
Like I know I hate it, but I feel like fans generally.
But apparently the players liked it.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the story anyway.
Yeah.
And also there was something that happened last year. The Titans put out a product that was just for like retail and all the Titans players saw it. I think it was the gym shorts. And they said, we want those.
Yeah, okay.
And they started giving them to the players. The players were trying to get them from the shop or something and they just started giving them to the players and wear these in the gym. So it's interesting that crossover has really shifted and we see players more care about what they wear, how they look, which I think is only good news for us as rugby league fans.
100%. So obviously you said like the jersey, just quickly finishing up on that, jerseys in terms of in fashion NRL jerseys. You mentioned like heritage jerseys and the retro ones are worn more. And I feel like I've noticed that especially like collared jerseys seem to be a bit more play on to wear, like in terms of like in, Sydney or like not in Brisbane, but just if people are going to be wearing an NRL jersey publicly as fashion, it seems to be, the ones with collars or heritage ones, which is interesting. Do you think there's anything there? And also before I let you go, another aspect I feel is the sponsor integration.
Yep.
If, a jersey's has better sponsor integration, it looks better, people are more inclined to wear that. What do you think?
Mixed bag. So I think, if that's a Sydney dynamic, then that's a Sydney dynamic. I mean, I think it's pretty common, like I say, on the Sunshine Coast and Brisbane and whatever, to see, and certainly country Queensland, see people wearing rugby league gear.
Yeah.
Obviously, some of the newer stuff is a bit more tighter fit, and if you've got a bit of pud, that's not going to sit as well. So that's where the retros come in.
Yeah,
the retros also priced very attractively, usually $30 or so cheaper.
Yes, for almost a better quality jersey.
And depends on what you like. So like I find if it's hot, cotton is actually really hot to wear. So the synthetic actually goes a bit better.
Yeah,
but so there's that factor in there. The second part of the question, though, related to,
Sponsor integration.
Oh, yes. So it's interesting. We care a lot about that, and I think rightly so. The Bulldogs with their heritage jersey did the other day, the way that they just put that outline around it, fantastic. Parramatta did a similar thing with their heritage jersey with Acton or whatever air on the sleeves. So there's a bit more thought going in there. Well, I shouldn't say thought. Designers have been trying to do that for ages. Sponsors have been a little bit reluctant to get on board for whatever reason. Anyway, mostly tied to money.
Yeah.
But back in the old days, some of the jerseys that people love had a big fat box in whatever color it was, Chandler's that used to be on the front of the Gold Coast Chargers jerseys was a big fat red box, white writing, and it said Chandler's. I sold a bunch of West Tigers stuff recently that either had Meriton Apartments in a big black box or new loans or some home loan thing, which is a big black box. So it's just like back in the old days, we just kind of accepted it.
Yeah.
And therefore, when we look back into the retro era, we just kind of accept it again.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting one because in one sense, we want our sponsors integrated now, but then we're buying stuff with unintegrated sponsors at a higher rate.
Because that is interesting. Like, in a lot of people's opinion, the most iconic jersey of all time, right up there, is Henny Penny Knights, which is a blue and red jersey with just yellow writing on the front. It doesn't integrate at all. Yeah. But it's one of the most iconic jerseys.
Well, and I think sometimes, and I never got to make this second part of this, I made that jersey sponsor integration video. I was going to make a second part, which is to say I think there's occasions where an unintegrated sponsor makes things better.
Yeah.
For the Bulldogs. Remember in the early 2000s when they had Synovus vitamins as the sponsor, the fluoro yellow and black looked great.
Yeah.
Wasn't integrated, but actually made the jersey pop.
Worked,
The red Mitsubishi logo on the 2004 Dogs jersey and the Maroon Auto Group sponsors on the sleeves made it pop too.
Yeah.
I think Gold Coast Titans and Gold Coast jerseys in general look better when they've got a little bit of orange on them.
Yeah.
Whether it be Neds, whether it be Jetstar, whether it be Home Hardware, who sponsored the Chargers back in the day.
Yeah.
So I think at times, also some Roosters jersey look good with a little bit of green, whether it be from the 2018 style NRL patch or they had a kind of Ulu or Uka or something was a website on the sleeve for a little while. So sometimes unintegrated things can help. Even the yellow sponsors that were put on the Panthers jerseys have really improved their 1997 to 1999 style warm-up tee that they've just brought out. The bit of yellow on the front and back really brought that to life. Yeah. So if we dumb things down too much, I think it might get a little monotone and boring.
Yeah, that's fair.
So a little bit of pizzazz, I think, gets you there.
You got to get that balance.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, I want to jump a little further back into our conversation. Just quickly, this is going to be very content nerdy. You mentioned when you started the page, you were talking to Jersey Lord. Is that
yes? Check him out.
He was doing his jerseys, and you wanted to sell yours, and you posted a photo of the jersey and then a video about the jersey. Did Jersey Lord post videos about the jersey or only the photo?
Just the photo.
So what made you do the video as well?
Because no one was doing videos.
And did you, because like for me, somebody, that's in content, obviously you probably know now as well, like videos are such a better way to reach big audiences. Did you know that back then?
I knew that if there were stories to tell, people weren't going to read text.
Yeah.
And so I can't remember what I was using to edit. I think Clipchamp had just come out, which was like the new version of Windows Movie Maker. So I think that's what I was using to edit these little videos on. And no one was really doing anything like it. And so I just thought, well, if videos is what I'm watching, videos is what everyone must be watching in a way, let's just do more of this. As I pushed into the space more, I've kind of worked out about like the metrics behind things and how certain forms of media do better with others or what gets pushed to your followers, what gets pushed out to everyone, about trending audios and all those kind of bits and pieces you learn along the way. But when I talk to people now, and particularly if they have like podcasts and they say, I'm not really getting that many followers. Well, you're putting out much video content? Oh, not really. One every couple of weeks. Yeah. And the podcast. We'll chop the podcast into 6 bits. You've got an hour's worth of content. The job's done. Oh, yeah, I probably should do that.
That's exactly like why you film a podcast. I don't think a lot of people realize that is the point of filming a podcast is obviously you can have it on YouTube, but you can have one without video on YouTube and people can listen to it. Yeah. But the best reason to film it is, to chop it up into content.
Well, why do people watch your podcast in the first place? It's because they saw the reels on Instagram.
Exactly.
No one sits there and opens up Spotify and says, find me a rugby league podcast. Yeah. And if they do, all they're going to find is Bloke, Hello Sport and whatever else is down the list. So you've got to have those little reels that catch people's attention. I've seen those guys a couple of times. Maybe I'll listen to the full thing. Or you give them that little teaser thing where it cuts off part way or whatever.
And so you were aware of that early on and that sort of...
I knew that there was...
you saw that nobody else was doing video. So you thought, I'll do this to differentiate, and then you've sort of learned over time.
Yeah. Originally my selling point, and I identified this pretty early on, that people don't buy jerseys because they like a shirt. They buy things because there's memories tied to them. 100%. So I'm not really selling jerseys. I'm actually selling memories and nostalgia. And so I thought, well, let's bring the nostalgia to the people. If they don't know, if they see a jersey on the wall that says Broncos one, I'll take you back to 1999 where this yellow daffodil jersey was worn against Manly and this game happened. This is how it unfolded and this is why this jersey is special. Now everyone buys in.
Yeah.
And some people bag me out for that. Like they say, oh, you're just like doing this to sell stuff, or you're doing this to make yourself look good or whatever. I'm like, yeah, me talking about this does make it look good and therefore increases the price and the value because people actually think it's valuable.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not apologizing for that because it's just, I'm playing the game. I'm showing you exactly why this thing should be treasured and not just thrown in a op shop wheelie bin.
Yeah.
But I think over time, people have kind of got on board with that and gone, yeah, we are willing to pay more for vintage stuff because it means something to us.
Yeah. And that's an interesting point because, like, obviously I have a big collection sitting right off camera. And the reason I have such a big collection is because I don't buy every single jersey that comes out if it's new. Recently I have because the Bulldogs have been dropping absolute bangers.
Yeah.
But I'm not just like, oh, the Bulldogs released a jersey, I'm buying it. It's if I like it, I'll buy it.
Yeah.
And I've gone back through time and bought all the jerseys I loved as a kid.
Exactly.
In my adult size.
Yeah.
And that's why my collection's so big. Not because I buy every single jersey for $160 when it comes out. I'm just searching eBay all the time. And it's like, oh, I remember that as a kid, or I love that as a kid and I couldn't have it then. I'll buy it now. So that's exactly, a fantastic point.
That's exactly right. Because the whole reason that vintage stuff and retro stuff is kind of really popular is the fact that fans don't have to look at just this current merch range to buy stuff. They can look back over the whole history of their club and say, I like that 2010 home jersey, and then go and find it.
Yeah.
And so they're willing to pay a little bit more because they're finding something very particular that doesn't get printed anymore or whatever. But that's why I think that whole retro, vintage, whatever market has exploded because fans have this huge array of things to go for. And even the retros, the Tidwell retros, aren't all unlimited prints. Yeah. So there's some that are released. Once they're sold out, they're gone. So that scarcity is even available in that retro sphere too.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, I feel like the access to jerseys as well, not because obviously eBay's been around for a while, but you know, the pages like yourself and other guys on Instagram and, you know, websites, Thrill of the Thrift is there.
Yep.
I've dealt with him before, and like the Facebook Marketplace stuff and the groups. I feel like the access to it also increases, you know, fans wanting to do it because they can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you're right. And that's why you see there's a bunch of, I think when I started, there was Jersey Lord and maybe a few other guys doing that on Instagram. Now there's like 1,000 pages out there. 100%. And I'm not against it because all these little guys go and find all these little things at their own little op shops and whatever and make them available to the public as well.
Yeah.
And so when people message me all the time saying, where do you get your stuff from? Where do I find this and that? I say, just go and follow all the little creators on Instagram because they'll find it and then you just buy it off them. There's no way I can find everything.
It's like that jersey selling world on Instagram, if you follow all the pages, it's almost like a huge online store for all the little op shops across the country, and each
pretty much, you
know, got their own location. Like you're on the sunny coast,
and it's much better than Marketplace. Like I know when last time I tried to buy anything off Marketplace, but it's just a hellhole. Like people don't reply, they try and scam you. Like it's just absolute dearth. But the good thing about Instagram, there's scammers on there too.
Yeah.
But when you watch these people who are consistent and their name actually means something to them, so if they stuff up, they have to rectify it to keep their reputation. Like that's what they trade on. So I'm not going to go and scam people because that's Retro Rugby League done. I think I've had one issue one time where I sent a jersey to someone that in the post it had sat in the heat somewhere and some of the sponsor had transferred onto something else. Sorted it out in minutes and everyone was happy. But I've been trying to be pretty particular in that area to keep things in a quality sense.
Speaking of scammers, like obviously I try and buy a lot of jerseys and I've been scammed once or twice, shockingly. Have you ever been scammed? Did you have like any good stories around any scams, or have you been lucky?
I have been scammed a few times, but usually only for little bits of money. I mean, my number one tip, and I broke it the other day, but the parcel showed up, so that was good. Is that you always pay with PayPal.
Because you can get the cover, the security insurance thing.
And even if for some reason, like here's a little pro tip for you. If you use PayPal off your credit card and then you use the not goods and services, the family friends one, which doesn't have the protection from PayPal, if it fails on that front, you can appeal to the bank on the credit card side of things and try and get a chargeback.
Yeah, okay.
Because the bank cares about that money because it's their money.
Yeah,
they don't care about your money in your bank. So use your credit card. If you got PayPal, have it tied to your credit card.
Yeah.
And then also, I think you've got 180 days or something like that to make a claim through PayPal if there's a dispute, but you've got longer through your bank. So by using your credit card, you double up.
Yeah.
Sponsored by Comeback, not really. But kind of get on board with orange peelers.
Yeah, why not? Why not? Back to just the content, obviously, like you said, and you do basically make a video nearly every day, if not every day, and you're sort of just doing those little pieces and you're selling the jerseys tied to that. Is there any bigger plans for your content or for the selling jerseys?
So the jersey is just kind of a continuous thing. I've actually been scaling things up and with my jobs, I'm actually like a youth pastor at a church. That was full-time last year. It's gone out of part-time this year and the jersey selling stuff has made up for that gap.
Oh, that's good to hear.
And I've done a few little paid promo-y bits too. In the talks about, what we might do, something like a podcast in the future and working alongside either businesses or clubs and things like that. There is some merch that I'm going to bring out this year that's just kind of in the final stages of coming out. And our members, our Retro Club members, see all those little snippets and teasers before anyone else. But that won't be a huge money spinner. It's more an art project than it is a money spinner. But that could hopefully maybe turn into something a little bit as well. I wanted to do something different with the merch range than just here's a hat with Retro Rugba League on it like I've done before. Let's do something different.
Interesting.
I'll leave it at that.
You mentioned you're a youth pastor outside of content. I wanted to ask you, and like I knew that, but I wanted to ask you, what do you do outside of sell jerseys and be the jersey guy on Instagram? What's life outside of that?
So I'm married. I've got 3 kids. So that takes up a lot of time when you're picking up kids to and from school and taking them to sport and stuff like that. And then, I've obviously got the youth group is one of the things that I run on a Friday night, being involved in church and stuff that all takes up time. But really, like, this has become both my hobby and another work thing as well.
100%.
And as we were chatting about before, it really changes the way that you watch rugby league. Like, I feel like now I can't really watch a game of rugby league without my phone in my hand, ready to record something that just happened on the TV and turn into a meme. So
do you watch much footy?
Yeah, I do. I don't always have the time to watch every game every round. I try and watch all the Roosters games, and if there's particular ones that I really want to clue in on. But that's why I'm also very thankful for like KO having the short and 20-minute versions, so you can just watch the highlights or get a bit more of a feel of the game than just who scored what try. But I think it's interesting once you get like locked into a niche. You start to just see things through that lens or just consume a lot of that content. So I don't play Supercoach anymore or draft, or I just don't have the time and I don't have the headspace to think numbers when I'm thinking, who made that jersey? When did they make that? Why did they make it like that? When's it going to change? Are they in the 2-year cycle? Is it a 5-year cycle? Is it a heritage thing or not? When you're thinking all that stuff, you just don't have room for that.
And like, obviously, so there's a balance between, doing the content of the jersey and stuff, and then obviously having your family and the youth pastoring and stuff. How do you find that you try and separate those and don't let it cross over, or what's your balance there?
It's the balance part is really tricky because a lot of clubs release their jerseys at either 8 a.m. in the morning because that's like peak time New Zealand or 5 or 6 p.m. at night. And they're usually the times when you're trying to either get kids up or get them to bed. So that can be a bit of a pain. I think my wife laments that sometimes when we're halfway through something. So I got to go because the Panthers just released something and you're trying to be the first one to do it. My one saving grace there is because I take the angle of trying to provide detail over speed. I'm usually happy for, like, you usually jump on it when something's out new before me, and then I'll follow up and say, like, and here's the story behind this.
And I feel like, because we don't communicate that, as in, like, we've never sat down and gone, I'll get it out first. But I feel like it's a really good 1-2 punch where, because like I review every jersey and I try and do it at speed because usually the value I'm providing is that's how people are finding out about it. Where if they know about the jersey, they're not going to really go, okay, like, cool. And you're adding that extra layer of value where you're sort of explaining more. So I feel like it's a good 1-2 punch where it's like, oh, there's a jersey at Winston just posted this the jersey, and then it's followed up by, oh, Retro's posted, the extra details.
And it's interesting. People want to know what other people think.
Yeah.
So when 100%. A new jersey comes out, very quickly, I'll go Winston Neville and see what's an instant thing about New Panthers Anzac jersey or whatever.
100%.
And I know people are sending messages saying, oh, you haven't covered this. Not because we want to know it exists. We just want to know what you think about it. And what do you care what I think about it? But people obviously care.
That's almost a really weird part about, being in content is like, why do people care what I think?
Yeah.
But they do, yeah.
But I mean, I'm not sour about that at all. I like it. And, when people come up to you in the street and say, oh, watch your stuff. And it feels weird because it doesn't really feel deserved because who am I? Like, I'm just nobody.
I feel the exact same way,
By the same token, though, people really latch on to either you as a person or to you as a communicator or to the ideas that you present, and they want more of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I found my niche and my success is that, let's say success. What have I really done? But I wanted, as a fan, to know the stories and I wanted to know the detail. And so because I cared about it, then that's what keeps me going. So even if no one watches the videos anymore and I scrap the whole thing, I'll still be reading those articles as to why that Panthers jersey looks that way, or why that Māori pattern represents this people group, or why these colors were used, or whatever. I've always asked that question, why, instead of starting, you see so many people when they see a jersey, the first thing they say, I hate it.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. You never ask the question. Ask the question. Why does it look the way it does? You know, I think people had referenced in the past, like Matty the Waterboy, he saw the Gold Coast Titans City jersey, hated it. He watched one of my videos. Now I understand it. So I think you could apply that to a large spectrum of life by saying, just ask the question, why is it the way it is before you condemn it?
Be curious.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like a Ted Lasso thing. I forget what the actual quote is, but it's like, be curious, not selling it.
I think, I've never watched the show, but that's that where they're throwing the darts, isn't it? That's the one little clip I've seen.
I've seen it on TikTok. Yeah, that's funny. Speaking of all your content, what is your favorite video? We'll do both. Your favorite video and your most successful video. So I'm going to assume that you have a favorite one that wasn't the most successful video.
Yeah, actually.
So what are the two, favorite and most successful?
So my favorite video recently, and I put a lot of effort in it and it landed, and partly it landed because people got on board and collabed with me, like Roasty. Like he's a legend in this space.
I
don't think there's anyone better in this space than Dean Messiter.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of guys who are a little bit helpful or who like his stuff, whatever. Dean will go out of his way to help you.
Yeah.
He is by far the best. Like, you ask him questions, he'll help you with stuff, whatever. He's the man. And so I made that video about sponsor integration, and I put like a lot of effort into it for my level of editing and stuff. And I was really happy with it. And I thought, this is a good video. I hope it lands. And it seemed to. People really got behind it. Early on in the piece though, when I was making videos about like, here's a jersey. Okay, let me tell you a bit of a story around the club and whatever at the time. I made one about a Newcastle Knights jersey, and the story I told was that back in, I can't remember the year, the guys at the United Bar might be able to correct me on this. I think it's about 1982 or 1986. Michael Hagan had just moved from the Bulldogs to Newcastle and started playing. And not long after, that must be in the 90s, not long after that, so he'd stuck around, he's part of Newcastle. Then there was those Newcastle earthquakes. And as part of the earthquakes, the club got players out onto the ground helping clean up the rubble and restore the town. So there was this real bond formed between the club and the town, because they weren't people that sat in ivory towers and just footballers. They were real Newcastle people who helped out locals. Well, later on, Michael Hagan comes on to become the coach of Newcastle, and then steers that team to that 2001 premiership. And so it's this kind of full circle story of this guy who leaves the Bulldogs, joins this team in Newcastle, wasn't super successful, but he buys into and just becomes a part of that culture that eventually breeds, Newcastle's last grand final win.
Yeah.
And I thought that story was really cool. No one cared. So I think I've reposted a couple of times and no one cares. So sorry, Nova Castrians. Apparently the world doesn't care about. I care about you.
Yeah.
Nilso cares about you, but no one else cares about you.
Rookies.
Yes.
And then obviously that was favorite and best bit of content. we'll start with in your jersey, not necessarily in your collection, because I know you don't actually own a heap of jerseys in your own
Your collection would be about 5 times bigger than mine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mine's very small.
But you have heaps of jerseys, obviously, that you're selling, so you have lots of stock.
Yeah.
So I want to know, what is your favorite, we'll go favorite and best again, that either in your collection or that you've just had in your possession, favorite one you've had in your possession, and then the best. Actually, don't do best because we'll come back to best. Just do the favorite jersey you've had in your possession.
We can talk about best from a price point of view.
Yeah.
Is that what you meant? Yeah.
So we'll do your favorite jersey, and then we'll go, what's the most expensive one?
So my favorite jersey, allow me 2.
Yeah.
So my favorite 2 in my collection is I have a 1998 Gold Coast Chargers jersey.
Yeah.
I bought that to sell, and then once I started wearing it, I was like, I can't let this go. Because of every time you wear it, people comment like in the videos and in real life. I wore it to the cricket recently at the Gabba, and all these people kept stopping me saying, "Oh, what's that team? I remember that team." Like they're having these full-on conversations because you're wearing this teal Chargers shirt.
Yeah.
The others, I've got a 1998 Roosters reserve grade jersey with number 23 on the back.
Yeah.
So it's got the old Sydney City logo, like with the meth head chook. Like, so that's my favorite Roosters one. The most valuable jersey I've ever sold, although I was actually recently offered $2,000 for that Gold Coast Chargers jersey. Yeah.
Far out.
I turned it down. I probably didn't read the message properly before I said no, but I probably would have still said no just because it's such a great conversation piece.
Yeah.
But I had a 1999 Broncos alternate jersey, which famously called the Daffodil jersey. So they had the 98 teal.
Yeah.
And then they had the 2001 teal.
Yeah.
But in between those, they had this one that was a yellow top, maroon top, yellow bottom because they wore it against Manly. And their away jersey that year for the Broncos was maroon top, white bottom. And of course, Manly maroon and white. That jersey, I bought it. I didn't quite know what it was. I just thought it was an away jersey. Then I started researching it and realized how rare it was. I took it to auction and it sold for about $2,200.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, so that was definitely my most valuable sell.
And you didn't even really realize.
Not till afterwards. Even the person who sold it to me didn't quite realize what it was. And I was like, oh, I'll shout you a carton. Yeah. Sorry, neither of us knew.
Yeah.
So I still talk to that person, which is everything's all sweet. But
that's funny.
Yeah, that was definitely the one that kind of blindsided me and definitely hit my profit margin in the green or the black for a very long time.
And I've definitely heard this answer before, but I forget it. What's your favorite jersey of all time? Personal opinion.
1998 Gold Coast Vikings.
Yeah, okay.
So they were the grade underneath. I almost got one the other day and I missed out on it.
Yeah.
There's a great collector called Rye Wiper. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. He's up in North Queensland. He has an extensive North Queensland collection, like huge. Oftentimes when the Cowboys show vintage jerseys in their promos, they're from him.
Yeah.
Or when they want to do a vintage ones, they'll get the originals off him to copy them.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's how good of a collection he's got.
Yeah.
And he sold a 1998 Vikings jersey. I'm sure you can put a picture up for people, but it's a bit Chargers-like, but it's so funky, so cool. Yeah. And I missed out. It probably good because it would have cost me like at least $1,200.
Yeah.
But yes, that's my all-time favorite.
I did like casually assume that you didn't own your favorite jersey because I just feel like most people just wouldn't because it'd be probably like a real, like for me, obviously the Bulldog Star Wars one is just one that I'll probably never own.
Yeah, that's just so few done.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you like the Avatar one?
I don't mind the Avatar. Yeah. The thing for me is like I love Star Wars.
Yeah,
that's why I love that so much. And I have them. You talk about memories tied to a jersey. Let me get sentimental with you. So the reason I love this Star Wars jersey so much is, first of all, my favorite Bulldogs jersey aesthetic is black and blue. I just love black jerseys. My favorite, like my prime era is like when you're 10 to 12 years old, that's like obviously, and that's how I was 10. Well, it was 2011, so I was like 9 years old. So just like I was coming into understanding what rugby league is. Ben Barber was my favorite player at the time. Just obviously, he's everyone's favorite. Anyone my age, your favorite player at that time was Ben Barber, right? And that's huge. And I only ever met Ben Barber once.
Yeah, right.
Guess when I met him?
When he was promoting that thing?
No, it was at the end of the game. It was the last game of the year, so the players all came around. And my only photo, and only time I met Ben Barber, he's wearing the Star Wars jersey. So I have that memory tied to it as well.
Was that Andrew Ryan's last year as a Bulldog? Because I remember him being in the photos.
Yeah, he promoted it, yeah.
But Luke Patton retired a little later than him, though,
He retired earlier. Patton was 2010.
Yeah.
Because Haz was 09.
So I remember, I think for Patton's retirement, didn't they give out little plastic Generals helmets?
Yeah, they did.
Have you got one of those?
No, because I didn't go to the game because back then I was living out in the country, so we didn't go to as many games.
I wonder how many of those are still floating around. Send us a message or something if you know one. I'll give you a funny
story about that. I remember, because we were members, we went to a few games a year. That might have been like a Friday night or something, which meant Dad had work. We couldn't go to the game.
Yeah.
And I remember like literally crying over it because they had announced they were giving away these General helmets and I wanted one.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I liked Luke Patton. And just as a Bulldogs fan, and like I remember literally crying, being like, "We have to go to the game. I want one of these helmets."
Yeah.
And like to the point that my uncle lived in Sydney, and he didn't go to like many games, but like calling him and being like, "Can you go to the game?" Just because I was so desperate. And like I never ended up getting one, but yeah. So I definitely remember the helmets.
But see, like this is the reason I was talking about this to someone the other day about the idea of fan engagement. The Bulldogs are doing I think they're actually class leading it at the moment.
That'd be very close.
And I'm not a Bulldogs fan, but I am not proud to call what I see. And I think the Bulldogs are doing head and shoulders better than everyone else in that space. Aaron Warburton as a CEO is fantastic. The fact that he replies to our Instagram messages. He was in my Instagram live the other night. Like what a legend. And there are other CEOs who I understand some are a bit older, so that like that's technology is a struggle for them. But really, when it comes to fan engagement, it's not about, money in the bank and it's not about technology. It's just about effort.
Yeah.
And Bulldogs are putting in effort and other clubs aren't putting in effort.
Yeah.
And they know who they are. And so all that really has to change. So it doesn't have to be this huge marketing budget overhaul. You just got to have people in your system and in your clubs and in your, marketing departments who care and who care about the people and not just about their revenue dollars and not just how do we convert more fans into members. Don't worry about that. Make them fall in love with the game and they'll become members themselves. Yeah, give them a reason. Do things like the General Patton thing or, I think that the fact that the Bulldogs had the gala dinner and had tickets for sale was fantastic. Other clubs have done that before, but the Bulldogs did it in such a way that the average fan could go and they didn't even have to announce it because all you guys it was everywhere on social media that night.
Yeah.
Every club would be stupid not to get on board with the exact same thing.
100%.
Broncos could do it tomorrow. Dolphins, anyone can put on a gala dinner and you can still have your VIPs down on the floor on the nice tables and you have the Povo people up in the bleachers, but they're having a great time because they feel like they're part of it.
Yeah.
And it's free marketing. So you're an idiot if you don't get on board with that. You heard it here first.
And that's like you talk about the fan engagement. I became a Bulldogs member in 2009. Like my earliest memory of like rugby league is around that era. I remember going to the first game as a member. Hasman Mazri broke the point scoring record. It was pouring rain against Manly, right? Like I remember that. And in that era, the 2009, 2010, it was when they were about to rebrand into the new logo. And so it was obviously a very engaged era of the Bulldogs in terms of fan engagement. And I remember just so many little things like going to the Bulldogs Members Day and then giving out packets of Starburst lollies. Yeah. And like that is such a simple thing.
Yeah, yeah.
But I remember that, right? And that's like such a little thing that.
And was that the players giving them out?
It was just the club
Staffers,
giving them out, as a little gift. But that's something I remember, and that's something like I just remember like I was obsessed with that for weeks. Like, the Bulldogs gave me a bag of Starburst lollies, right? And that's a tiny little thing of fan engagement. And I remember maybe it might have been 2013, they did like these superhero cards. Every week, if you went to the game, you could get a different player each week. And just little things like that just are so simple and so easy, but they do so much, especially just for kids and the younger generation.
And it costs you next to nothing. Yeah, we're focused on, the idea of Vegas. We're focused on the idea of names on jerseys for fan engagement. We're focused on the idea of Magic Round. You know what we're not focusing on that the AFL is beating us at? The kids only round.
Yeah.
So they have it. They have it. It's like over a 2-week period, I think. It might even be longer. It might almost be a month. And kids go free to most of those games in that time. Fantastic. And everything that's there is really kid orientated. There's a lot of blow up inflatable things. Because what you don't understand, or what some people don't understand, is that you're not just targeting kids now. If you lock them in now, you've got them for life.
Yeah.
So don't just think about, how do we sell people that got money in their back pocket now? If you lock the hearts of those kids up at 10 years of age and they're Bulldogs fans for life, you've got them forever.
Exactly.
It sounds like a bit of a con.
Well, I feel like I'm a prime example of that, right? So I'm speaking of all these little things that as a kid, I became so obsessed with the Bulldogs. And like, to be fair, like I was brought up in a family where everyone goes for Bulldogs. So it was a family thing as well. But to having those game day experiences and those member event experiences and having so many chances to like meet players at member events and the Bulldogs putting in so much effort then, they created almost a monster to what I am today.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, obsessed with the Bulldogs and I'm sitting here with, 50 Bulldogs jerseys there and I have all this stuff here and, I'm going to all the games and stuff. It's an investment into the children where you bring them up into that culture.
It's an investment financially. It's an investment from eyeballs point of view. So it allows you in the future to sell better TV rights deals and stuff because you've got a more engaged fan base. It's an investment into the future of your playing group because more kids are invested in playing that sport over AFL, soccer, etc. It only reaps benefits to target. This sounds really bad when we say target children, but it's the play. Like we got to win the hearts of kids first, and also when you sell kids to tickets, guess who has to pay to go along with them?
The parents.
Mum and dad.
Yeah, 100%.
So, I mean, like the Dolphins last year or the year before, they actually came and did like a training session at the little football ground where my son plays and the club we were a part of. And so they ran like their full training session while the kids' games were on the next field next door, like on the same paddock. There's just grass between us. And then when they finished their game, all the players came over and like acted as little water boys for each team. So we had Jeremy Marshall-King on our side for one game, and then later on we had Jermaine Asako and Jesse Bromwich on the other side.
Yeah.
By the end of the day, all the kids, if they weren't all the way Dolphins fans, their team, the second team was at least the Dolphins. And now my son has forsaken the Roosters, I fear, and has become a Dolphin.
Oh, no.
But like it's those little moments that really capture people. And I think there's a big reason, that's a big reason why kids want to play State of Origin over Kangaroos is because the Blues guys, the Kangaroos, the Maroons guys turn up in their schools and run those programs, but they don't really see themselves as Kangaroos. They think that's an elite thing for someone else. That's only for special people. But I'm a Queenslander or I'm a New South Welshman. I get involved in that. Yeah. So I think that's another thing that Kangaroos could work on.
That's a big reason for the rise of the Penrith Panthers that nobody sees. And Gus has spoken on it because like I grew up in the Central West, which is Panthers region. As a kid, they were doing nothing there. Yeah. And then as I sort of got maybe around, definitely like around 2019, 2020. So as I later in high school, for me, that's when the Panthers started to do stuff in schools and in the community. They take the game to Bathurst now. And Gus
Mudgee as well. Mudgee as well.
Mudgee now as well, that whole, the Central West region. And Gus has spoken about it on podcasts before about how like they were looking at, the Panthers might have gone to Bathurst and done like a little session. And everyone in that, they take a photo, everyone in the photo, all the school kids, nobody's in Penrith merch. They're in every other team. And Gus is like, why is nobody wearing Penrith merch when it's technically the Panthers area? And so they ended up putting a lot of effort into, going out and giving out Panthers merch and, tying to those kids' heart. And you can sit here and call Penrith fans bandwagons and that, but there's so many little kids, they're not bandwagons. They're growing up in the Panthers territory and the Panthers are doing that fan connection.
And it's not an accident that all the Penrith teams that have now come through and won 4 premierships are filled full of Penrith juniors who all played together since 13, 14, 15 years of age.
Exactly.
Because they all went to those fan days. They all started playing footy and they all started playing in those same little things. Yeah. So some clubs, like we were talking about before, have it easier than the others. Broncos have had a very easy time for a long time because they've basically had this huge market of Queensland to themselves. Yeah. But it's not like that anymore. So they're going to have to put in some effort. Other clubs, though, like the Titans, have put in heaps of effort lately. Like their market pool isn't very big, but they're just trying new things and they're getting out there. They're one of the better clubs I've had to deal with because they're just trying and they want to get things happening and involved. Where there's other clubs who, because they're big and elite or whatever, they don't feel like they have to try. Yeah. I don't think that's going to work from long term.
Yeah. We'll start to wrap up. I want to ask you, back to jerseys specifically, what's your favorite thing about rugby league jerseys? I remember hearing you talk once about like almost the patriotism of the jersey and like what it represents and the tribalism and stuff. But because obviously like you have such a tie to jerseys, you're the jersey guy on Instagram. What is it about jerseys?
I think it's what I said on a previous podcast, I think, is that to me, the jersey is the link between the player and the fan. Yeah. In a morose way, it's almost like a macabre way. It's almost like a tombstone. A tombstone is the link between the past person and their memories. So having that jersey there is the thing that links you back to your favorite player or makes you feel like you're kind of in touch with them. Yeah. People often say, how come they don't make cotton jerseys? How come they don't do this? If there be names on jerseys, people will just go and buy the blank ones anyway. No, they won't, because rugby league fans in their deep, dark soul are nerdy cosplayers who like wearing what the players wear on the field.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the fact that I can buy what Tom Trbojevic wears and have the same thing, that links me to him.
Yeah.
Whether his name's on the shirt or not, that's the tethering point.
Yeah.
And then also tethers you throughout time. So when you look back to the glory days of the Broncos, I remember those 2000s jerseys. I'm going to go back and get one of those.
Yeah.
So for me, that's what the real thing in jerseys are. When I make these videos, sometimes people say, haven't you got something better to talk about or whatever? Man, you don't get it. You don't get it. We're not really talking about fabric here. We're talking about memories and nostalgia that are manifest in something that you can pick up and wear either to the game, and other people tap you on the shoulder. Oh, I remember that thing. It's a whole conversation piece that you don't really get with many other rugby league anyway merch things.
Yeah.
Cards, collectibles kind of sit away in a drawer, but you don't walk around with like all your Pokemon, like Logan Paul.
I was going to say, Logan Paul.
Charizard around his neck. So yeah, I think that's why jerseys are special, and that's why I'm happy to hear, I think, that more players are really liking it.
Yeah.
That it's not just like, they have disdain for the fans.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a really good thing.
And that's an interesting point you bring up in terms of, I'll call them idiots online being like, why do you care so much? And like a good example of that is the Bulldogs new jersey. They just released the 35 replica of the stripes. The general consensus is it's one of the best jerseys of the year, if not the jersey of the year so far, and maybe even just one of the best jerseys in recent times. And that's non-Bulldog fans have said that. And there's a few people online though that are saying, I don't get it. It's just stripes. Why are we losing our minds over the stripes? It looks like a blanket or it looks like a towel. And it's like, well, because you don't understand what the stripes are representing and where it's come from. And the Bulldogs did such a good thing at the gala and in the launch video of explaining what the stripes, not just, hey, we wore them in 1935, but what is a callback to 1935. It's about what the Bulldogs were back then. It was the Belmore, the region, the Canterbury region was, people that were working hard through the week and then pulling on that jersey and playing football on the weekend. And it ties to that history, right? And if you're looking at the jersey going, it looks like a towel, it's because you don't understand the meaning behind it.
My wife said the exact same thing about, and I think after seeing some of the trials recently, this has been elevated my number one jersey of the year so far is the St. George Illawarra away jersey. It's the first time they've done that Steelers design. Usually the Steelers kind of get a bit of a nod or a backseat or this half-hearted attempt, but they went all out. 1998 Steelers. This is the last year of the Steelers. Here it is. And wife said, why do you like that? It's just white stripes on a red jersey. Literally. Yeah, but it's more than that because here is the end of this thing. This is just before they merge. That 98 red Steelers with that Hammerman logo is one of my favorite jerseys of all time. And so to see that redone when I know it took a lot of effort to get that over the line and a lot of St. George fans, I mean, real St. George Dragons fans, hate it.
Oh, yeah.
Because they just can't. Every time you post anything about that, they just, it's not a merger, it's a joint venture, it's not this, they signed away their rights. Yeah, whatever, bro. Go have that conversation somewhere else because this jersey is awesome. So, yes, that's why I think when you have that immediate reaction, I don't get it, then your next question should be, why? Not, so it's dumb. No, be better than that. Be more curious and ask why.
100%. And speaking of, new jerseys, the Bulldogs just released their jersey. Penrith yesterday released an Anzac jersey. And before we started, you were sort of talking about, your opinion of Anzac jersey. You were sort of, you didn't explain it to me, but you were hinting at something.
I was talking about Indigenous jersey, but
but that's
true too. Yeah.
So talk to me about Indigenous jerseys, what your thoughts are on them going forward. Because obviously at the moment, their teams are required to wear them. It's under the rule is you're allowed 5 jerseys a year.
Sometimes you get an exemption for a little bit extra.
You can get exemptions, but teams are home, away, and Indigenous.
The other 3 compulsory.
Right?
Yes.
So talk to me about Indigenous jerseys.
So I like them, and I like that when you look at these designs, sometimes there's a little bit of work involved, but they tell stories. Some of them. Some of them are slapped together with next to no effort, and I've heard stories behind the scenes about how these things come about, and you just shake your head and think, this is just awful. And if I am a Cowboys fan, if I'm an Indigenous man and I'm a Cowboys fan, I'm very pleased because Cowboys know what they're doing. They put in a lot of effort. If I'm an Indigenous man and I'm a Broncos fan, I'm pretty pleased. If I'm Indigenous bloke and I see what the Panthers are doing or have done the last couple of years, I'm not very happy because they just copied and pasted last year's design and changed the colour.
Yes.
If I am a Indigenous man, I'm going to see some of these other ones around, I'm borderline insulted. So from that point of view, I think to get the best product, you take the compulsory part off and you say, go for it and invest. And if you are a team that doesn't have a heavy Indigenous supporter base, maybe you do something every now and then. But if you're the Panthers, maybe you do a Pacifica kind of thing instead. Or, Warriors often do stuff like that, but they kind of also go heavy every now and then on Anzac jersey. You've got the power to go heavy on something one year and then bring it back next and actually make it meaningful instead of dragging your feet through the mud and looking for the nearest person who can just draw something. And that's why I think they should just be a bit more free. Yeah,
and obviously Anzac jerseys have become that way in terms of they're not compulsory, but I feel like they're just so overdone at the moment where it's lazy. The same thing every year. You either got your camo or your silhouettes, or you have camo and silhouettes.
It has gotten better over the last couple of years, I will say.
Yeah, and there are a few clubs that get creative and do the originality. I think like what Roosters do is fantastic. But for the most part, I feel like it's very overdone.
Well, it's interesting. Canberra last year. So like it's Canberra, right? It's the military capital of Australia. They've got the War Memorial in their backyard and they trotted out this camo design with no meaning. I mean, come on. Just talk to anyone in the military who's probably 9/10 of your supporter base and get them to have a clue. The Newcastle Knights put an absolute abomination out. It's the first image that we look on Google Images, F-35 over Newcastle. So dumb. On the Roosters, I like that, but I think we've fallen into, as a Roosters fan and member, you hear a lot of fans saying, we should never go away from this because this is what we've always worn. Excuse me? The club started in 1908. We had 2 world wars before we even came to that date. That's impossible. So literally. What about honouring the troops from 1918 or 1915? Whenever don't sue me for getting the dates of the First World War wrong. What about the Korean War? What about the Vietnam War? Because fascinatingly, there were players from the Roosters and other clubs who stopped playing football, went overseas and fought in the war, and some of them died and came back. Why are we not telling their stories? So at the very least, and I suggested this last year, we'll see if it comes to any fruition, probably not. Do the sky blue wartime jersey and just have something about a certain player from that year. I can't recall the names off the top of my head, but you just focus on one guy and he was this guy who played, then he went and fought in France and he died or whatever else. Tell his story. You don't have to do heaps of design. You just do a little patch or something and then you do that. You go heavy in that on your marketing and your media. But that's the stuff that differentiates people who care from the people who don't care. And there are some clubs that just pump it out regardless.
What's your take on the 5 jersey rule? Do you think they could do better or is that good? Should it be more? Should it be less? Should there be more emphasis put on this is a home jersey, this is an alternate jersey, this is this? What do you think?
This will come out after our debate, so I'll give it to you now, but I'm giving you ammo now. I was chatting with someone about this and they said that it was actually the NRL who came in and put a stop to that, to the unlimited amount of jerseys. Remember the Warriors put out like 8 jerseys a year. Now, as a fan, I kind of like it. But interesting, what it was doing was driving down sales. Too much variety in the market got people scared because we'll just wait for the next thing. Don't worry about it this year. And they didn't buy anything or less. So the NRL actually put a cap on it because too much diversity in the market drove down sales. So obviously from that point of view, it's a smart decision. And the fact that they're willing to be a little bit flexible and give teams every now and then the ability to do a 6th, John Sattler jersey for the Rabbitohs the other year and stuff like that. So, I think 5 is enough. As a nerd, I always want more, but I'm satisfied with 5. Plus, you can push into areas that aren't jerseys. You can do captain's run shirt, you can do warm-up tees, you can do all those kind of things too. There is a limit on those as well. It's how many SKUs you can put out a year. But, always want more, but I think we've probably got enough.
You mentioned Souths, and this will be the last question, unless you set one of us off on a tangent. You mentioned Souths.
I won't do that, would I?
Now, my least favourite jersey this year is the South Sydney away jersey. One of my favourite home jerseys is the South Sydney home jersey.
So you like the black over the white?
No, and not because of the colours.
Right.
I think the South's design, it's classic, it's iconic, you can't change that. But the away jersey is basically identical to the home. Outside of the black is the white. What's your take on that? Is that stupid? Should they have an actual away jersey?
I know there's other clubs who are a little, not upset, but kind of miffed that they have to keep pumping out new designs. The Souths don't.
Yeah.
Firstly, I think the white rabbit should be the home jersey. So that was a Russell Crowe thing.
Yes.
Whatever.
Because the white one's the original, right?
Yeah. So Russell Crowe came in and he said, we're going to have a black rabbit and we're going to make it kind of tough and whatever else.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever. They've had away jerseys in the past and they just kind of stopped.
Yeah.
So like in the early 2000s, they started doing them for the first time.
Yeah.
And that's 2002 was the first ever away jersey they ever did when they got re-entered in the competition.
Yeah.
And then they just kind of pulled back from it. So I'm not really sure what the story is there. I think fans would like to see more. They like the variety. I'm not sure. Yeah, there's too many fans who sit there each year and say, I wonder if I'll buy a black or a white one this year.
And
so I don't know.
I wonder how many, because there'd be fans of other clubs that, you buy the home and away jersey. And not everyone's doing that. I don't even do that. But there are fans that, buy the home and away jersey. There cannot be a single Souths fan that is buying the home and away jersey.
I bet they would.
And then in back-to-back years as well.
Yeah. There's some hardcore guys who just buy everything. But it's a tough sell. And I guess, you're never going to have the average Souths fan buy both. They'll pick one or the other. So when the new jersey comes out, this design slightly changes, they'll pick the home or the away.
But there'd be more incentive to buy both if the away was more of a variant. Like if it wasn't identical, right?
Yeah.
Like surely just add some more white on it. If you separated the stripes with some white, or that alternate jersey they did last year, I thought could have been an away jersey.
Yeah, although did you see that was basically a copy of the Wrexham FC jersey?
Yeah.
Which you could actually, ironically, buy one of those jerseys from England or Wales, get it shipped to Australia and put badges on cheaper than you could buy the NRL.
I said that was going to be the last question. I have another question. The price of NRL jerseys. Now, I understand there's a reason they cost so much.
Yeah.
You've broken down, all the different things.
Yeah.
Do you think it is possible for them to be cheaper? Is there a solution? Can you think of a solution?
It's very tough.
Because obviously they did the Australia ones way cheaper, but that's because there wasn't as many royalties and that sort of thing. Club jerseys, can they be cheaper?
Yeah, so there's a lot of layers. And when you ask this question to people, so there's two main things. When you ask this question to a lot of people, so you say you talk to the manufacturer and they'll say, we think it could be a bit cheaper, but it's not us, it's the club.
Yeah.
And then you talk to people in club land, they say, we agree. It could be they might not say we agree. They say, if it was going to be cheaper, that would be an NRL decision. And then you talk to people in that space and they say, no, it's not an NRL decision, it's a retailer decision.
Yeah.
You talk to the retailers and they say, no, it's manufacturers. So everyone's pointing the finger. It's like the Spider-Man meme. Everyone's pointing their finger at everyone else. Someone would just have to take a whack.
Yeah.
Now, the one saving grace in defense of the price of jerseys that we've been paying about $150, $160 pretty much the last 8 to 10 years. So from an inflation point of view, we're not doing too bad.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I did look the other day at NFL jerseys. They range from 180 to 250. We do have some expensive ones. Sometimes the heritage ones cost $10 more. State of origin ones a little bit more. Although Queensland actually brought the price of those down on their training gear a little bit this year. So they maybe listened to me there or my outrage. To be honest, I don't see much hope in sight for the price of jerseys coming down.
Do you think it's possible? Obviously, it's one thing for it to be possible and it's another thing for them to actually do it. Do you think it is do you think financially retailers can take a hit and still be making
It's not the retailers. It's not the retailers.
Do you think there's one of those legs that can take a hit and still be making a profit? Or do you think they're operating at such a small margin that they just can't drop it?
I don't know enough of the minutiae to know exactly what, but it would come down to someone taking the hit.
Yeah.
So who's going to take it?
Yeah.
The Australia case is a little bit different because the NRL can afford to take the hit there because NRL Kangaroos, they own it.
Yeah.
But clubs probably clubs won't give that up. They're not going to give away their royalty
and they're only
share.
getting a small share at the moment as well.
Well, don't forget, so they get the revenue share from the royalties, but also if they sell the product in-house, they also get
because they get the retail. Yeah.
So that's why they often say, if you want to support your club, the best thing you can do is become a member and buy the merch from their shop. And that's more money in their pocket. Although I will stick up for the mum and dad shops that are out there doing the damn thing, like Jersey's Megastore and What's Your Team and My Team Shop and whatever. Apparently over COVID as well, the cost of production has gone up. You often see people in the comment section saying, I can get these jerseys made for $14 and whatever. Yeah, maybe you can because they're Chinese knockoffs.
Yes.
But don't forget there are whole design teams behind this and whatever. Is there a bit of fat in there? Maybe. But who's going to give it up and who's willing to do it? I don't see it happening.
Do you reckon clubs could sell them cheap at their store? Like even just
well,
10,
they do
$20
for memberships.
But like even just for fans, like could the Bulldogs team store be selling it for $10 cheaper than actual retailers? Because, they're getting that extra profit.
They could. But we've got to remember at the end of the day, I know we like to talk about this as fans because we want the best fan experience. But these are businesses.
Yeah.
And so it's a very hard sell to walk into a business meeting and saying, I've got an idea. Let's reduce our profits.
Yeah.
For what? Oh, nothing. That's not a very good business idea.
Yeah.
So that's the thing you've got to really win over. So that's why I think, it's a good idea when you become a member of the club, then you get your discount supplied there. That's pretty good. And I think I know when I see Penrith have discounts are pretty good. From time to time, clubs do like little spur of the moment sales. I think Canberra last year had a win in an away jersey and they did 20% off that night. I've seen the Bulldogs do something similar before.
At the moment, they're doing like the Bulldogs doing those bundle deals as well.
Yes, good idea.
Huge.
Yep. Last year, Newcastle did something at the start of the year. We could trade in your old jersey for 50% off a new one. Yeah. And all the old jerseys went and got donated to kids. Yeah. Very clever. So there's things that they can do that don't have to just be dropping the price because, of course, they've got to think down the future. At the start of the season, the jersey's worth $160. By the end of the year, they've got to discount it. So they've got to factor that in from the start. Yeah. So I don't see those prices coming down.
Yeah.
I'd hope that they kind of stabilize. I mean, they've pushed up lately at around that 170 mark. We're teetering. Names on jerseys could drive that up. But yeah, I don't have much hope in that coming down.
Yes, sick. All right, this is rapid fire final 3 questions. Okay. This is going to be for anyone that comes on this podcast.
Sure.
They're going to be hit with these 3 questions. They're hard hitting. All right. What's your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Licorice.
What?
Yep. Every time I go to an ice cream place, that's the first thing I look for. Have they got a licorice ice cream? Because it has the double utility of it turns your poo green out the other side.
Is that something we want?
Sure, why not?
If
you're sick of Brown Town, I love licorice. What? But you get to get the fun out the other end too. So that's the one I always look for. Shout out to Messina though. Yes. The double dulce de leche, or however you pronounce that properly, is my favorite one there.
There you go. There's a place I think it's in the city as well, but there's definitely one in Cronulla called Anita's Ice Cream.
Oh, okay.
It's very good.
Okay.
They're not even a sponsor. That's just a free plug. All right. Number 2.
Everyone's getting the free plug. Combank. All these people getting all the yeah.
Favorite Ninja Turtles?
Leonardo.
Why?
Oh, I like the swords.
Yeah.
I think they're cool. And he's kind of like the leader of the group. Yeah. I never got on board with Raphael. It's too much of a hothead.
Yeah.
And Mikey's kind of funny, but
no,
it's Leonardo.
If I had to guess, I would have gone Leonardo or Michelangelo.
There you go.
As what your favorite?
Right, there you go.
So I can weirdly predict a lot of the time what people, because it's a personality.
Can you predict their ice cream flavor?
No.
Oh,
I would not have picked you as a licorice fan. I don't think I'd pick anyone as a licorice fan because I hate licorice.
Big licorice fan.
And then the last one, favorite non-NRL either sport or athlete?
I haven't watched much of this lately because it got taken off KO because it's no longer with ESPN. It's with whatever it is now. The Supercross in America. So that's the motorbike racing indoors. Yeah. There's a guy who's racing over there in the States who's actually from the Sunshine Coast in Queensland. His name is Jet Lawrence.
Yeah, okay.
And he won the whole thing last year. People don't understand how big of a deal that was. This kid from country Queensland or Sunshine Coast to go to the US and dominate not only like an industry, but individual athletes from other countries have all pulled into this one thing, and he's beaten them all. He's huge. Yeah. He is not getting the credit he deserves.
There you go.
And he's also got a brother. I don't think he's a twin. I think it's a brother. I can't remember his Hunter Lawrence.
Yeah, okay.
So I haven't watched heaps of that lately because it's not on KO like it used to be. Bring it back. But yes, go and check out Jet and Hunter Lawrence in the Supercross in America.
And you like the Supercross generally as well?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I used to watch a little bit of that. My dad likes that and motocross. I probably prefer the Supercross over the motocross because it's shorter, more intense.
Yeah, okay.
Inside the stadium, I've never been to one, but I used to ride motorbikes a little bit as a kid. I wasn't very good.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's a really engaging sports, high octane, literally, and they're allowed to barge into each other, unlike supercars and stuff.
There you go.
So yeah, go check it out.
All right, sweet. Well, that's us done.
So much for 40 minutes, eh?
Yeah, I said this will be, 40 to 60 minutes. Bit over, but that's all right. Hope you had fun yapping.
That's good.
I enjoyed hearing everything he said. And check out, give yourself a plug as well.
Oh, sure. So you can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at retro_rugba_ league. There's a couple other accounts that are similar to mine. So there's like a Rugby League Retro and there's a Retro Rugby League spelt right. No, don't go those ones. Go to the ones that spelled incorrectly with hyphens or whatever, the underscores in between. That's the right one.
Why Rugby League? Is it because of Peter V'landys?
Yes, and also Retro Rugby League I think was taken at the time. Originally my name was going to, here's a little tidbit for you, was going to be Lest We Forget because about forgotten jerseys. And I was like, no one's going to search that. It's going to end up in all these Anzac pages. So script that.
I'm glad you went Retro Rugby League.
Yes, but it was, it was
TikTok once upon a time was called Rugby League.
There you go.
Spelled that way. And then I changed it to Winston Neville. So there you go. All right, that's us done. If you got to the end of the episode, thanks for listening and go follow Retro Rugba League.